Rev up your engines!
Well, General Motors is hit with another class action suit. This is over their 8-speed automatic transmission. And the suit, if you ask me, they hit the nail on the head. They cite that GM has had 60 technical service bulletins and service updates to update the software on these transmissions. 60 of them. So obviously they know there's problems, right? Turns out they're probably getting a restriction of the fluid flow. Problems with their torque converter. Somehow they're not flowing right. And of course, if you don't flow the fluid right in the automatic transmission, guess what? The fluid makes it run. It also lubricates it. Boom. The transmission will fall apart. Now, GM already tried to throw an earlier lawsuit out. And here's their technicality. This shows what scumbags General Motors are. They say that this transmission problem is related to a design defect and not a manufacturing defect. Now, you think logically, it's General Motors. They designed it and they built it. But no, they got lawyers, right? And you know how lawyers are. They're looking for a way to get their clients out of it. They're out to get their client off as long as they're getting paid moolah, right? Their defense is a technical one. Because they say GM vehicle warranties only cover up manufacturing defects, not design defects, even though they designed the car, right? Talk about a bunch of scumbags. It's their own car. They designed it. They built it. And they said, we built them correctly. It's the design that's wrong. And our warranty does not cover bad designs. What a bunch of scumbags. Let's hope they don't get away with it this time. Only problem is this class action suit is in the state of Michigan. General Motors is headquartered in the state of Michigan. They still have jobs there. They still have political pull. Let's hope we don't get a scumbag judge who agrees that General Motors right. Well, you did kind of design them wrong, but you build them according to that design, so it's not your problem. Get even with these corporations who are snubbing their noses. Just don't buy their products. If you don't buy their products, you won't be stuck in this rat's nest. But who designed it? Well, that doesn't matter. That's not part of the suit. You can't sue us for that. Let's hope they lose this one. 60 technical service bulletins and software rewriting. Yeah, obviously they know there's a problem with these things, right? Now they're trying to pretend, well, yeah, there's a problem, but, you know, it's a design flaw. Our warranties don't cover design flaws. They did the same thing with a Corvette with those wheels, right? They had the wheels, the fancy wheels. Well, they went cheap. Instead of having forged wheels that are forged strong, they had cast wheels. Well, if you know anything about wheels and metallurgy, casting is weaker. So they had these super fast mid-engine Corvettes, and the wheels kept cracking. The spokes would just break right off when they're going down the road because they used cast wheels instead of more expensive forged wheels. And they got out of that one because they said, well, we built, the design might be wrong, but we built them to that design. Scumbags. That's all I got to say. Larson One says, my check brake system warning light is coming on my 2010 Acura. Says, check the brake system. It only happens when it's colder than minus 18 degrees Celsius. Here in Alberta, we've gone from minus 10 to minus 42 regularly. When I turn it off, back on, the light's gone. Should I worry? Do you think it's just the cold? It probably is the cold, but one thing you want to do is check your brake fluid level. There's a float there. And when it gets low, the float gets low, and then it makes that light and tells you there's a problem. When it gets cold, brake fluid shrinks. Beep, shrinks down, right? But when you start up the car and it warms up, it heats up. And once it heats up, the level gets higher and the light goes on. 3 real reasons that light can come on. You're low on fluid, could be that, or you got a leak in the system. So when you step on the brakes, if you're losing pressure, that light will come on. Now, you're losing pressure, you got to have a leak somewhere. So look for a leak if that's the case. But if you're not losing fluid, that's not the case. Of course, the other one is, if you got your emergency brake on, that light will also come on. And that could be you forgot to take your emergency brake off, or that little switch on the emergency brake is broken, and it's making it say you got the emergency brake on when you don't. There's only really 3 real reasons that light's going to come on. And I'm assuming maybe it's just a little bit low on fluid. Look at it, and if it's not all the way to the max line, fill it to the max. And it's probably just because it's low, and when it's cold, it shrinks down. That could easily make it come on when it's really cold outside. And then when it's warmer, it expands more, and it doesn't do it. Ash702 says, my Chinese brand AC compressor is making noise. It's brand new, Honda CR-V. I hear some noise even when the AC is off. Does anyone have a problem like this? Yeah, well, a lot of times you do if you use a cheaper Chinese compressor. You hear a noise even when it's turned off. If that's the case, it could be as simple as the AC clutch isn't shimmed correctly. When you have the AC turned off, doesn't have electricity going to the electromagnetic clutch, so it's supposed to spin free. And the way it spins free is the end of the shaft bolts in, and there's shims inside, and it's supposed to be so many thousandths of an inch away from touching the metal so that it will only activate when you turn power on. Then power hits the electrical magnet, and the electromagnet then sucks in the end of the compressor and makes it spin. So if it's making a noise, even when you have it turned off, it probably isn't shimmed correctly. Now, of course, you just bought the whole compressor. You'd have to get the specs, see what they are, and if it isn't enough, you'd have to take the front off, get a bigger shim, and then put it in and measure to make sure it's the correct air gap. It's called the air gap. You could check that, but that's the problem. A lot of this Chinese stuff is just cheaply made, and it will make noise because it wasn't put together right. I don't advise using them myself. I'm not a fan. You had a Denso one, and now you got some Chinese copy. Nah, I wouldn't do that myself. Brandon King says, is too much washing bad for your car paint? I got a 2019 Camry, and I'm satisfied with the car, except I regret I bought a black car. It has a ceramic coat, water spots aren't an issue, but it gets so dirty. I've been washing it every 2 to 3 days. Is it going to hurt stuff? Well, you got the ceramic coating if it was done right. There's so many different ceramic coatings. Some do stuff, some do absolutely nothing. But if you got a good one, it holds up. You're not going to hurt anything if you're washing it with the right soap. My favorite soap, and I've been using it for decades, is the Meguiar's Wash and Wax Soap. Don't use dishwashing soap. That's not good for your paint. For decades, I've been using the Meguiar's. You put a capful in hot water, wash it, clean it off, dry it. That actually helps the paint last because there's wax built in. So you're doing like a minor type of wax job every time you wash the car. And man, does it make a difference. I showed my son in Boston, 2-year-old Corolla, and he says, wow, Dad, it really looks good days later. I said, yeah, because it waxes it and washes it, and it holds up, and it really makes the paint hold up. Meguiar's is the company, and I've been using that stuff. It's yellow looking. Get a big gallon of the stuff myself. I get tons of it. Doesn't damage. It actually makes the paint better. So if you're not using that, switch to a better soap. But no, then it doesn't hurt anything at all. Carlo Martinez says, I dropped a nut in my engine bay and I can't find it. Is it okay? Do I need to search for it? I got a Chevy Colorado. Should I worry about it? I've driven it. I don't hear any clanking noises. You don't want to drop a nut somewhere where it gets sucked into the engine and causes damage. You know, let's say you were changing the oil and you had the oil cap off and it fell in there. You want to take it apart and fix it. They can do serious damage. If you just dropped it, one, it can't get sucked into the engine if everything's closed. Even if it got near the intake, it'd get sucked in and then it would sit on top of the air filter. And when you change the air filter, there'd be a nut on top of it. It's not going to hurt anything. It's internal things that can hurt. Now, if you heard a noise, yeah, you'd want to do something. Let's say it got stuck on a drive belt or on a fan belt or rattling around, yeah. But you don't hear anything, so, you know, it can be perfectly fine. I mean, go in there with a flashlight, maybe a magnet, go around, see if you can pick it up. It's not going to hurt, and you don't hear any noises, and you didn't have anything open, as long as nothing was open. Like, let's say you were changing the valve cover gasket, and you dropped the nut inside. Yeah, you'd want to get that nut out before you put it back together, but if you didn't have it all apart, no. It's not really going to hurt anything. Oh, here we go again with a lack of quality of Teslas. Tesla just recalled 500,000 cars because they have a risk of crashing. 356,309 Model 3s manufactured between 2017 and 2020 can be caused by faulty rear view cameras. The trunk hatch is made so bad the internal cable wasn't put in right, and it can damage the camera. So then it won't properly display images of what's behind you. You might not see something, and then you run into something. That's what happens when you get this high-tech stuff, right? Well, the cameras don't work all that well. Look, these cars, some of these are 2020. The thing didn't even last a year and a half, and then the camera broke already. And imagine as they age. The stuff is only gonna break. Plus, guess what? Dirt gets on them, ice gets on them. They don't work right half the time because they're dirty. No one cleaned them. The ice froze on them. You can't see through them. And to top it off, it's not just the Model 3s. They're also recalling 119,909 Model S cars between 2014 and 2021. The front hood latch may come over. The front hood might fly up. That's a little more dangerous. You're driving down the road in that fast old Model 6, all of a sudden the hood opens. You can't see where you're going, you're going to crash. So really, this lack of quality with Teslas, it amazes me that anybody buys the stupid things. Don't buy these things. They're overpriced junk. They don't put them together right. He's just whipping them as fast as he can so stock price stays high. Old Elon can cash in on all of his stock options that he had that expired 2022 this year. They're all going to expire. So you know the guy's going to start cashing them in like no tomorrow. So he's got to keep the production up and make it look like, oh, he's doing great, he's doing great. Yeah, look at all these recalls. He's not doing great. Any fool can see that. He wants to whip them out so he can cash in and then lie back on the beaches and count his billions of dollars while he's laughing about people driving around in his electric cars that fall apart as we speak. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.